and the bottom end is second to none. It's actually my favorite stage in Los Angeles, even though we did some stuff over at Sony as well. Well, between those three rooms, actually, plus we did some stuff here. We have a very interesting, let's say, sounding room, which is, it's really rough, and it's got real grit and character, and you can't leave without having dirt on your fingernails. So having these different acoustic environments is I think a real plus, because you just suddenly, first of all, the musician responds differently to each acoustic, and secondly, you get a much larger palette to play with. And one of the things that I thought would be interesting for this project is to really create a fairly large palette of sonic possibilities. Everything takes 10 times as long as I planned, because what starts off as a simple little idea, then suddenly, as soon as you put the word out that you have an idea, other people come and add their ideas to it, and some of those are great, and you embrace them, and some of them you don't want to embrace, but whatever happens is, the project is going to expand. So what started off as, oh, let's just go and do a couple of days at Air and be done with it, now turned into this enormous undertaking. Plus there's one other miscalculation I made, which was, it is the season of summer movies. So between Superman, Lone Ranger, and two other movies I got on the go that needed a little attention, I'm way behind, and so is my whole team. At the end of the day, we really do want to end up with something extraordinary, because once you get the guys in to start playing and you see how much effort and sweat they put into this, you need to sort of honor that at the other end and do a good job of preserving that energy, and you can't just crank it out. Each one has to be treated like each hit is treated like a little diamond that needs to be shaped and polished and tweaked and played around with.
Tell me, why work with Spitfire?
I like that they like the same room that I like using. Plus, they consistently have ripped me off over the years, which, imitation being a certain form of flattery. But if I think about it, it means that their sense of aesthetics is not that far removed from mine. So that seems to make a good combination. Plus, I think they come at it from the same way that I come at it, whereby they see it as a means to an end, because they're musicians, and really the only reason they're doing it is because they're trying to get more ammunition for their own music. So look, I don't have to do this. This isn't going to make a difference to my bank balance. I'm doing this partly because I think it's interesting. It's an interesting experiment, and I thought people have always been asking how we make these percussion sounds, and it just seemed like a fun thing to do. The musicians are sharing in this, so it was actually a way for them to actually profit beyond the point of just doing this one performance. It was a way of saying thank you, but you have to go and put a bit of sweat into it as well, for the last 9 years of bashing drums for me.
Do you think it will create a bit of a controversy, affecting the livelihood of musicians, what with the music business being what it is? No one's really sure where it's headed.
Well, nobody knows where it's heading. The serious note about it is, if we were to lose the orchestras, if we were to lose these halls, and if we were to lose the ways and means of creating music with a large body of people in a room, it would be a tragedy way beyond the impact on the musician. It would rob our culture of a means of communicating, and that's sort of the serious aspect to it. So one of the things I'm interested in, I've always been interested in, is how can I keep the orchestras alive? And if you think about what I do and what all the other film composers do, is we on a daily basis commission orchestral music, and we're keeping these orchestras alive. And if I can somehow persuade by giving young composers, young musicians, tools that will make them sound fabulous, I hope that somewhere along the way, from their demo that's gotten them some crazy, fantastic job, and a decent budget, they're going to go, oh, you know something? I should go and hire some real musicians to go and play on this. You have to see it as a means to an end. Progress in technology is not necessarily a good thing, but it is a thing that exists, and we just have to go and figure out how to navigate in this world where these possibilities exist. Sampling isn't the reason that concert halls are empty. What our job is to drive music forward, to make it interesting, to make it commercial in the best possible sense. To say, you know, an orchestra can rock out. I mean, you can go and see an orchestral performance and it'll knock your socks off. I'm just interested in seeing how far we can push that. I mean, movies is one way, sampling is another way, live performance is another way. And the way these, you know, it's one of the reasons I love working with Junkie XL, because, you know, I mean, he does these shows in front of 250,000 people, and, you know, they go nuts. And it's just one man and his synthesizers. You know, he's just written his first symphony, which was performed in Amsterdam. So, you know, yes, with a full orchestra. So these ideas are not mutually exclusive. You know, tools are tools. All music relies on technology. A violin is just, you know, a bit of good carpentry and some dead cats. I mean, it does involve a certain amount of technology to get you there. At the end of the day, it's the ingenuity of the player and it's the ingenuity of the composer that are going to go and really make something out of this thing. What I do care about is to give people the opportunity to go and make music. One of the things which I always thought was phenomenal about music is that sense of all of us getting into a room and bringing a piece of music to life. And that doesn't mean you can't be sitting there with your sampler. You know, you can still play along with other people, you know. I mean, the playfulness, I think, is really important in this whole thing. And you know, you asked me why Spitfire, because I think they're reckless and playful. So I think they fit right in.
So there must be one thing left that you haven't sampled. Is there something you're looking to the future to make sure you get a sample of?
Here's an interesting thing about sampling. Sampling is inherently boring because it just captures one moment in time, and then you regurgitate that moment in time and time again. So it's a never-ending process, because as soon as you got the perfect string sound, you're already bored with it. So you have to keep going back to the well, and you have to keep getting those drummers in, you have to keep getting those players in, and, you know, adding fresh meat, because otherwise, you know, you go up to your keyboard and you play that chord and it sounded just the way it sounded yesterday. So I see this as a constantly evolving process. And yeah, sure, look, just now I'm working on Lone Ranger, and it's about the train being built through America. So yes, I went and demolished a couple of train tracks and trains with sledgehammers, etc. You know, that was quite a good sound. Wherever I go, I hear things, you know, and as the technology gets better, I'm actually more interested in, you know, how can we capture really quiet things and bring those really close and bring your attention to them, you know, put things under the microscope, reveal things that aren't revealed. And I mean, this modern world we live in is inherently noisy. So much of beautiful sound gets masked by, you know, just the sheer, you know, anarchy of engine noises and air conditioners and somebody drying their hair and mowing their lawn and all that sort of stuff. And part of what's happened over the years as well, because I've been doing this sampling for so long, is there's a sort of a certain preservationism that goes on. There's for instance, my favorite cellist in London, who who I've sampled for years, he just retired and sold his Stradivarius. So that's the end of that era to a certain degree, except that sound still exists in my library. And that performance still exists in my library. So there's a sort of a historical archival thing that rather than just having, you know, a great recording of a Fort Wagner performance, you actually can go and create new music from scratch with those great performances.
You do a lot of work in Europe, especially London. Why London?
Because I got a great fuck-off flat there. No, that's probably not the answer you were looking for. Because that's where I started. And, you know, I was a session musician in London, you know, then joined a band, you know, and sort of went from there. And the greatest compliment I think I've ever gotten, better than Oscar, better than Grammy, etc., was towards the end of the last Dark Knight Rises. You know, working with those percussionists that we've just sampled, these guys have played on everything. They're the guys. You know, there's nothing they haven't played. So my great ambition has always been to go and do just one thing where they go, wow, never done that before. I actually figured something. I'm not going to go into the details, but you know, number one, I got the compliment of going, wow, we've never done this before, and it sounds really good. And the other thing was, one of them took me aside and he said, you know, like 30 years ago or so, you know, you were in amongst us, and then you left and you went to Hollywood, and you could have turned into a right old prat. But at the end of the day, you're still just one of us. You're still a complete musical bastard. And somehow, I thought that was the best compliment I ever had. I hadn't lost my roots, and it's really important to me, out of many reasons, to support those roots. And one of the things is I love the way that space sounds. That's how I hear music. You know, it is in that space. It's where I grew up, and so it always gives me not only a sense of where I come from, but you know, I have worked very hard over the last 30 years at really learning, understanding, manipulating, and recording that space and getting better at it. You know, with the help of Jeff Foster's and Steve Lipson's and Alan Myerson's. You know, it's not just me, it's a whole, you know, music doesn't happen in some sort of vacuum. It's a whole team effort.
Is there anything else you'd like to add?
I think I probably said too much.
Not at all. We thank you so much for your time.
You're very welcome. It's all right.
Yeah, fantastic.
It must be difficult to have your head wrapped around all of it.
No, it's just I'm getting vertigo with him going.
Yeah, going back and forth. Oh, no.
I hope you're doing the same with the sound, because you know you have to keep the phase symmetry between the image and the
Yeah. Macro sound.
yeah.